Welcome, everyone. It's wonderful to see you. We're so happy to be together for this very special event of our episode 3 of season 2 of On the Brink of Death. We started this last year, this series within our program of remembering who we are, to be able to tap into the real self and to make sure that we're leaving the ego out of the way and seeing that we are not these minds, we are not these bodies. We have this weekly gathering that is dedicated to that purpose, to remember who we are, which we started 2 years ago. This being the anniversary, we have this special series of On the Brink of Death with Sacinandana Swami. And in the last 2 episodes, we heard stories of his being in life-threatening situations and what lessons he was able to glean from them for our benefit, and so that we don't have to go to such extreme lengths to gain the jewels of wisdom that he has. So he's been generously sharing with us, and we are pivoting today into a very different format where we are opening up for more question and answer, more opportunity to hear from Sacinandana Swami on the specific questions that are on our minds on the subject. So the format will be that he will speak up front and share some of the lessons in summary from the last 2 episodes. And then we will have time to hear from you, as well as ask questions that have come up at different times, including last year, that will be very likely shared by many of you and will bring out new insights. So you can kindly direct your questions to Michael, direct message him, and at any time share with him your message, your question, and then we will ask as there is time. We will be doing 2 more episodes in this same format. So next week and the week after, we will do the same thing. And we're very, very excited about it. So a word on the culture that we're trying to co-create here together is that we have 3 pillars we ask of one another. So first, your full-hearted participation. That means listening with your undivided attention, your full presence, not multitasking. If you can keep your video on, that goes a long way, and it also creates the effect of community that we found to be very powerful. Your respect in helping to make this a very safe and sacred space, and your determination that we don't just want to hear something today and feel like, oh, that was interesting, oh, that was nice, I learned something. We want to keep that with us. We want to feel like this is being taken into our lives, and that requires from us that we show up with some determination to live the teachings that we'll hear. Does that sound agreeable? Full-hearted participation, respect, and determination? Excellent. Thank you so much. It goes a long way. So Sacinandana Swami, who's been with us here, he's a monk who's been practicing bhakti yoga for over 50 years. And he is very steeped in the art of meditation and also musical meditation called kirtan. He travels around the world sharing his teachings. He's written multiple books that are very, very realized. And we're very honored to have him with us. He's my personal guru, and I always feel so excited that you get to hear from him, and we at Upbuild get to share the benefit that we receive from him. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sacinandana Swami.
I first of all want to say I'm really personally enjoying these series because I guess when someone shares his own realizations or insights, they become fresh again in his life. And I just feel from the announcements which Hari Prasad has made, these 3 points, full-hearted participation, a culture of respect, and a determination to apply what we hear. I feel with this framing, we build a very sincere community in these Zoom conferences that enables a lot of personal reflection, but also growth. So I feel honored to serve you and feel joyful in 2 ways. One is because I become more mindful about the gifts that were given to me, and second of all, because in such a community we really feel yes, a bond, a deep bond. Let me now start. I will just say a prayer. Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paskatya Deshatarine. For me to share these episodes in my life is really an opportunity to come face to face with that ultimate mirror that shows us who we really are and what we have realized so far. In the face of death, it becomes very clear where you stand and where there is room for improvement. In one of my meditations, I bring people meditatively, in meditation, to a situation where they lie on their own deathbed, and I ask them a question: is there anything?
I was studying, I was like 3/4 the way through the first one, which is the longest. Yeah. I had no desire to take it. Right. You have to take it though.
Yes. Is there anything which you have not yet done that you know you should have been doing? Is there anything which you have not yet said, but which you feel should have been said by you? And in that meditational situation, when people are in a death-like situation, they're prepared, wonderful answers show up. And people have thanked me profusely. They said more than anything else which they have done so far, this meditation had helped them to really understand what is their purpose in life and what is their, what are the important relationships in which they should communicate important and essential things. Death is a mirror which shows us things which we often overlook. I was happy to go to this mirror again when I told you about about this thing which happened in Afghanistan, where the assassins which were hired by an enraged public to kill me, or at least an enraged group of religious zealots, maybe over-enthusiastic religionists, when I faced them and they held their knife towards me to end my life, Yeah, and when Yoshi came and saved me, afterwards I had a lot of reflection. I could think this could have been my very end, or the last episode which I shared, where I was recalling how I had contracted a deadly sepsis, and how I fought in that one deciding night with the death, with my own death, and how I woke. There's someone there who has not yet muted himself and who is talking. Maybe this can be arranged. So, yes, I would like, when I came out of these situations, I had deep reflections. Like all of us, one side in me fears death, especially my own death. Like all of us, when I go with a car past an accident and the police and the first aid people have not yet arrived and the asphalt is covered with the blood, I don't like to look there. I look away and say a prayer for those who have been in this most probably fatal accident. Like all of us, my own death, which is still a little bit unknown. I have some inclination how it might happen, because I have dreams, reoccurring dreams about it. But I can't and won't say for sure. I have this fear. But I have another attitude towards my own death. And that is, I think of it as liberation from a limiting circumstance. And it depends on which level of consciousness I am, whether I'm afraid or whether I am calm and still about it and even think it's nothing so tragic. When I identify with my physical body, I'm afraid, because as Jean-Paul Sartre used to say, death is not another possibility for me, but it is the end of all my opportunities and possibilities. So therefore, when I'm identified with my physical body, as many people in our Western hemisphere are, then I do not appreciate death. I'm afraid of it. But in those moments when I'm in my spiritual consciousness, identifying with the soul, I almost die like a Viking who has his sword in the hand and who greets the people who stand around him and says, I'm going now to the table of God. I will be with him, and I will feast and do everything there. I'm giving this example in a humorous mood. When I'm thinking of myself as an eternal soul, an eternal part of God, at that time, death is not something to be feared. It is something which, you know, it will come. The body will die, but the soul will ascend and move on. What gives me this certainty? Well, it is a text from the wisdom texts of the Vedas, which is known as one of the three most important texts in the Bhakti tradition. Let me describe to you how this text can make you feel this. There was once an old man who knew his time was very close, and he had come to a great teacher, Ramanujacharya, and he had asked him, "Do you know where I might be going after this life? I fear my death is just around the corner. I could die easily or most likely within after 1 week has elapsed." And Ramanujacharya said, "I personally don't know where you will go, but I can ask." It was known that Ramanujacharya would speak to God. He would go to the temple and he would stand there in deep meditation, and he would communicate with that Lord who was worshipped on the altar in a deep way, and he gave unfailing answers. In other words, he would receive answers from above, and he would give these answers to the people who had questioned him, and they were always right. So Ramanujacharya came to the altar, and he said, "There is this devotee, his name is so-and-so. He's very old, and he feels death is approaching him. So can you please give me an indication, an answer to his question? He wants to know where he will be going." And he heard the following answer. I will read it to you. I have it here. Know that the entire universe is my body. Neither birth nor death have any effect on me. When one gives oneself to me with a firm belief that I am his everlasting support, I think of him at the time of his death and rush to his side, even if he has no control over his senses, with his body appearing like a wooden log or a stone. I lead him then to my supreme abode, where he performs eternal service to me. This is one of the Charama shlokas of the Bhakti tradition or the Vaishnava tradition. In other words, if we have given ourselves over, or even if we have only tried to do as best as we can, at that time we don't have to worry about our future. It is no longer necessary to think, have I mastered this? Have I been able to successfully complete this task? Am I good enough for auspicious passage from this body? No, all these worries, all these concerns are no longer taken care of by ourselves, but they are taken care of by that Supreme to whom we have given ourselves over, or tried to give ourselves over. I will end this little prelude to our question and answer session by summarizing. Yes, like all of us, I am afraid of my death. But in addition to this fear which comes with the bodily instinct of self-preservation, which is after all as natural as it is for the blood to circulate within our veins. Beyond this, I know that we are an eternal soul. And once we are identifying there and living the soul life, that is maybe a new word in the American language, when we live a life based on spiritual values or a soul life, then this fear, which is the worstest fear, goes away. Hermann Hesse, you must be knowing him from his very interesting literary output, Steppenwolf and Glasperlenspiel. I know all these works in German, Demian. Hermann Hesse said, actually, there is no death. And he was referring to the eternal soul. What is there is fear of death. And that can be cured. I would like to add, and that must be cured. The moment you have cured this fear, which supplies all the other small fears which we have with their emotional life, you know, when you have solved this big fear, the small fears shrinkle and go away, and that is something which is very, very good. Yes, I think we can go over to the question and answer session. Let me just clarify this with Hari Prasad. I have also prepared a meditation, but I'm thinking maybe we should do that towards the end, like 10 minutes before the hour. We can enter this meditational space. Or why don't you decide, Hari Prasad and Michael, from the way it goes? Huh?
That's great. Yeah, sounds good. So we'll close the session officially at 1 p.m. Eastern time, and then Sacinandana Swami will stay after for more time and more questions until 1:30 p.m. Eastern. Wonderful. So we'll go into the questions now, and we would be happy to have you lead us in a meditation as you're inspired before the close at 1 p.m. Eastern. Thank you. So this is inspired from a question that came last year, which Michael is sharing the same question. If we hear what we are called to do and we feel inspired, but it seems possible but it seems impossible because of our own conditioning, our family situations, our egos, and so on, what do we do? So if we're hearing this calling, we know, we have clarity what we need to do in touch with the soul to some degree, but it seems impossible because of situations and conditioning. What should we do?
Change the conditioning in a careful and soft way. Let me give you an example. Under which, or let me ask you a question, under which circumstances can a seed grow? Well, it requires good, nourishing earth. If it is in sand, the seed cannot grow unless it's a cactus, a very specific Mexican plant. I don't know if the English word is cactus. It is. I have a Krishna here. Yes, so many times people say, I do know what I should do, but they lack the strength because they are in a weakening atmosphere. There is a very, very strengthening atmosphere. The strengthening atmosphere is good association. The strengthening atmosphere is supplied by knowledge that you refresh by reading books, hearing lectures. But more than anything, the strengthening and supporting atmosphere is created through spiritual practice. My dear everyone on the call, I also know that some circumstances seem to be so limiting that we really feel there is no way out of this. I'm cursed. We feel almost like a slave who is bound on all 2 arms and 2 legs by thick iron chains. But I have seen the miracle of spiritual practice does not only change your inner reality, it also changes the external reality. Where people used to say no to you, they will say yes, 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 move forward. If you have a spiritual practice, they don't even know why they all of a sudden changed, because there are forces set free through spiritual practice that can really change the impossible to the very well possible. It is the experience of all spiritual people. Some of them were really confined by family. Some of them in the ancient past were imprisoned for their spiritual beliefs, even tortured at times. Some other spiritual people felt just that their beloved partner was not happy with them going the spiritual path. But all these people, or many of these people, who took nevertheless to a doable, realistic spiritual practice, have seen how their bonds have gone away. So there are 3 things I recommend to those who have this question. And I believe in some ways it's all of our questions. It's a question for the benefit of all. Create favorable circumstances that nourish you internally, and you will see how the external environment changes with this. It's human ratio fails to understand this, but that's why it's called spiritual. Carl Gustav Jung used to say, when the world of God comes into the world of man, it is always breaking in. It is never coming through the conventional doors. So that spiritual reality is evoked, that world of God is evoked through regular spiritual practice. Please try it out and you will get the proof in your hands.
Thank you. The next question is one that my mom had. How do you hold on to the freshness of a realization? I know from experience that it fades with time for me. So we have an experience that feels quite connected to the soul. Something spiritual comes our way, but over time it fades. How do we hold on to the freshness of it?
I can think of 3 or answers on 3 levels. The first is memorize it. The second is look for an enlivening spiritual environment that is likely to provide you with a new spiritual experience. And the third is go on pilgrimage. Leave your home, leave what you are doing, go on pilgrimage. It could be, a pilgrimage should be to a place where you feel you can make deeper spiritual experiences. It could be something like flying to a fjord in Norway, sitting at the cliff in the on that fjord, and saying a prayer, and all of a sudden it's there. But you need to get out of the known environment. So let me speak about the first, memory. Memory. Have you heard about the explorer Marco Polo in America? He was from Italy. Yes, you have heard, I can see from the sign. And he explored the Far East, different cultures and with their values. And he has something very nice to share. When he came back to, I believe it was Venice, I'm not so sure, or Pisa, one of the two, all what he had seen, the cultures, the men of wisdom, the amazing encounters which he had, everything seemed to fade away, and all he saw was the small little streets of Venice, where the same old things happened again and again and again. So what he had done is he had sewn into his coat, the inside of his coat, some of the jewels. And when his days became too, how would we say it, too boring, too tiresome, he would open his vest like this, he would look at the jewels, and he would memorize, wow, and we had this discussion and that discussion, and this is what I saw. And this helped him to escape the smallness of life in Venice. So go through your memories, but go in some depths through the memories. What happened? How did it make you feel? What was your reflection afterwards? And so on. The second point which I wanted to share is we human beings are so much dependent on the association which we have. In Sanskrit they know that association can work on various levels. When I have association with a very lusty, materialistic person, my lower energy circles are evoked. But when I have uplifting spiritual association, my energies on the level of the heart, where we usually locate spirituality, is evoked. The last thing I suggest is move. Go on pilgrimage. Make some distance to your life and see it with a new perspective. You will be able to recognize much more than which you do when it's just before your eyes. So memory, association, and pilgrimage, that will refreshen your spiritual experience.
Thank you. So inspired by something you spoke about last year about getting into victim mode, where it's sort of the opposite of feeling connected with ourselves. We feel totally powerless and like life is happening to us. We're surviving instead of really living, as you speak about. what are some steps that can help us come out of that victim mode that we all experience at one point or another, and some of us live in for long periods of time, or it's so deep rooted in some of us that it becomes part of our identity, consciously or unconsciously?
Act opposite to being a victim. Act like this. I would like to give you an example. I am from this, I'm a post-war generation. My father fought in the Second World War and saw all the cruelty of the war. He was really on the front, in the tank, with a gun in his hand at times, but also operating the tanks and so on. And he brought some traumas with him, which he could cure. He went to a professional therapy, and it helped him very much to become free from it. So I had thought, I will never see war, because people have learned by now. Then this thing happens just before the door. This conflict in Eastern Europe. And it is so close, my dear people on this call, that it made me just so hopeless. And to hear of the cruelty, it just turned my stomach upside down. I mean, it was a physical experience of utter helplessness. Just last week, maybe 4 days ago, what do we have today, Wednesday? No, 5 days ago, I was at a refugee place, small, where there are 100 refugees, and I spoke to the refugees from the Ukraine, and heard the very graphic descriptions from their mouth. And it really, I suffered with them. But you know how to come out of this, I'm a victim to these times where high political powers work and economic powers are there, and cruel leaders and all this. And what helped me is to come out of the victim role. What helped me to come out of this was to do something which is in my power. Like I collected some financial support. I was not a rich man, but sometimes I can motivate people, and I sent it there. I am in contact with many organizations that help and give financial or spiritual support, and really do what is in my circle of influence. You must know, and I think I shared this with you, in life there are always 2 circles around your life. One big circle is the circle of concern, and one smaller circle in the midst of it is the circle, let me see, at least on my screen it doesn't show nicely. Now I can see something. It's the circle of my influence, you know, that's small circle. So there's always something within your influence that you can do. And this could be just a meditation which you do, a prayer which you do. Invest in these things, and that will bring you out of the victim role and strengthen and expand your circle of influence. Whatever happens to you in life, Go into your circle of influence and do something there. And even if it's the smallest thing, even if it's only an intention, it will bring you out of this victim role because you act as a shaper of life, not as a victim of life. And from that first step come other steps. Other steps. And maybe one day one of you will be the new president of America, independent of economical forces, who can do something good for the world. When you start with small steps that are realistic and possible.
Thank you. So this will be the last question before we come to our official close, and then we'll open it up again for more questions, and you can lead us into meditation after this. So Pragya is asking, in day-to-day living, while I keep this Sangha, or this company of like-minded spiritually focused persons, while I keep this Sangha and read sacred texts and listen to Sacinandana Swami, I find it easy to say I am not afraid of death. However, how do I really know that my consciousness is at this level? I wouldn't know unless I'm actually confronted by a life and death situation, right? How to be sure that this teaching has taken root and is reflected in how I live my quotidian life?
The absolute security which we always want to happen to us will of course be only in the situation itself. And you will see when you are in such a situation, usually there is help. There's help from various sources, some even unseen, that help you to go better through it. It's amazing what all of a sudden, I only know the American slang word, what kicks in or what enters into the fray, into the battle, into the situation. But no one of us should wait for such a situation. In the meantime, you can only prepare yourself by increasing your association, by staying in the community, and by having your own spiritual practice intact, which will fortify you and make you and enhance your skills. There is a meditation, you will be very interested to hear about this, which people on the spiritual path frequently do. I first became aware of it in a lecture, when I listened to a lecture of my own spiritual master, who said a wise man should keep death in front of his eyes. And at that time, it did not immediately make sense. I needed to listen more to this point. But later I understood, when you become mindful or stay mindful, that yes, you could die soon, it's before your eyes. At that time, you will start to sort out what is important, what is not important. See, I'm in a situation, I'm a monk, but people give me so many gifts. Oof. I don't even know sometimes when I come back with a car, where will I put these gifts? All the spaces are available. All the available spaces are taken up. Then what I do is, I think, well, tomorrow or in 1 week I could die. So what is essential for me now? And then I have the strength to empty out my bag and give away even the good things and just keep my possessions to a realistic quota and which is not becoming too much. So yeah, this would be my answer. Prepare yourself, by keeping the eventuality of death before your eyes. And by the way, this preparation helps you to enter a vision of reality. You are no longer in a cloud of illusion about life.
Thank you. So please feel free to take us into our meditation.
Yes. I think what we will do now is we will engage with death on a very practical level. I might go 1 minute or 2 minutes over time, but please stay on. It's not good to leave meditation and when we do surgery, we have to sew you together again, so then you can leave the table. Good. I request you that we make a little stop. And we will engage now in a very real and personal way with our own death. Let me first ask for technical assistance. Hari Prasad and Michael, is that the tambura, is it loud enough? Is it too loud? Is it too soft? Please tell me. It's okay? Good, good. I have not yet asked you to close your eyes. I just want to prime you a little. My dear everyone on the call, if there is one thing that is sure in your life, it is the fact that you are going to die. It's not sure that you will stay in the same town. It's not even 100% sure that you will stay with the same partner. It's not sure that you will keep the same job as you have now. It's not sure whether or not you will have the same amount of health and wealth. But what is sure is that one day you're going to die. And it is good to enter this final exam in a prepared way, in a well-prepared way. So in the following meditation, we will touch this preparation, but you might like to reflect about it outside of this meditation. Now I request you first of all to sit straight. Find a comfortable sitting position. And when you are ready, please close your eyes. Bring your attention to your lower body, from the feet up to your hip, and relax. Now bring your attention to the upper body, from the coccyx, the end of your spine, up to your head, and relax everything. Lower back, upper back, chest, belly, shoulders, arms. Relax. Finally, relax your facial muscles. Take a few deep breaths. Bring your attention to your inhale and make it smooth, long, and gentle. And bring your attention to each exhale. And make your exhale smooth, long, and gentle. Let us do a few of these deep, relaxed, unforced, long breaths. Whenever you inhale, stay with the inhaling air. And whenever you exhale, stay with your attention with the outgoing air. Go now with your breath and your attention into the heart space. Just imagine when you inhale, you're breathing down into your heart space. What is your life now? What is the job or the occupation that takes time, good amount of time? And bring to your memory who's with you at this time of your life. Friends, relatives, partners, those who have children. What people are there in your life? Make a small inventory. And now ask yourself the question, is there anything that you are not yet doing, but which you feel you should be doing? It could be an activity. It could be a communication, like a phone call, writing a letter, expressing something. Is there anything which you are not doing, but which you feel you should be doing? We move forward in time. 10 years from now. What is it that you will be likely doing? What kind of people are with you? Maybe some of the people who were with you 10 years before are no longer in your direct circle of the people with whom you deal, but maybe new people are there. What kind of people are there? Where do you live? It doesn't have to be accurate. It can be also where what you like to live. And again, is there anything that you know you should be doing, but which you are not yet doing? Let us move forward in time. This is the time of your death. It is the exact, precise day of your death. In fact, within this hour, you will leave everything behind. You are lying in a bed. The room in which you are is white. The blanket which is drawn up to your chest is white. You are aware of everything, but at the same time a little distant. There are some people around your bed. Who are these people? They look from time to time at you. You're tired and a little withdrawn. It seems as if you have already retired or stepped back from the active engagement with this world. One person is crying. Who is that person who is crying? Now you feel a gentle pull. It pulls you out of the body, out of the room. You go higher and higher. After some time, the Earth planet looks like a precious blue pearl. Is there anything that you should have done, but which you somehow didn't do? Anything you should have said? anything that you should have taken up with more focus? Now you hear a voice. It's not yet your time. Return. And the same gentle force which pulled you out of that body, that room, that atmosphere, swiftly carries you back. You're in that room and you feel strangely invigorated. You feel as if you wake up from a deep, dreamless sleep. You open your eyes. There's no one in the room. It seemed to have been a longer time than what you experienced the time when you went out. And again I asked you the question, is there anything in your life that you know you should be doing, but somehow or other you have not yet been able to do it? Let us take a few deep breaths now. Maybe move your body a little bit on the seat and open your eyes and return to room awareness. You remember my story about Marco Polo? When he came back from the foreign lands, he brought some jewels. Maybe today you found such a jewel in the meditation or in the question and answer period, or from time to time. Look at the jewel. It might give you a lot of strength and a lot of purpose which you could be looking forward to. Thank you very much. I think Hari Prasad, it is time for you to give some of our guests who have planned the day differently to permission to leave, so that they can leave in a dignified way and not just pushing a button, boom.
So thank you so much, Sacinandana Swami, for sharing with us today. It's so meaningful to have you with us. And for everyone who is with us, we're so grateful for your presence, and you're taking your life and your real self, the soul, seriously. And we can't wait to be back with you next week for another episode with Sacinandana Swami on the Brink of Death. And we'll take your questions. Please continue to think about your questions and bring them to the table. For those of you who can stay with us, you may continue to share any questions that you have. Thank you. So we have a question from Tia. A major theme I'm gleaning from these talks is the urgency of spiritual pursuits. Yet sometimes in my reading, I come across phrases that describe the gradual nature of spiritual realization, such as we thus gradually come to the right conclusion about the value of life. I do not understand the paradox. Which pursuits do we approach with urgency, and which ones do we approach gradually and patiently?
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I would like to give you a very unexpected answer. The answer is you should start on the level where you find yourself at present. You know, what are you capable of doing at this moment easily, because it's according to your level. And then look forward, look towards the level you can come next to. I'm reminded of something which I may have shared with you in one of the preceding sessions. My spiritual teacher, who himself had a very high, Himalaya high spiritual practice, he would get up at 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the morning. He was really very serious, and he once delivered a lecture in Stockholm. Many people in Stockholm live on social welfare. The Swedish state pays so much money to homeless people or people with a very low income, so much that the people who are rich and who need to pay a lot in taxes are complaining, at least at the time when I was in Sweden. I don't know if it's still the same now, because I lost contact. So anyways, so Srila Prabhupada, it was known in the town that there would be a festival, and there would be a lecture and spiritual music, and in the end, a free feast with rice, vegetables, a sweet and a soup would be served for free to whoever came, and everyone could take to his full capacity. So there were many drunkards there. And I was in charge of ushering people in. I was at the back of the hall, so they were all leaning on the side of the hall in the back and just waited for the time when the free meal would be served. So my spiritual master is sitting up front in the on the stage, and he looks at the whole hall and notices maybe there are 50 people or 70 people who are just sitting on the floor, leaning against the wall. Some of them brought the bottle of beer in. I could not convince them to leave this outside. So yes, what to do? Let everyone is welcome as long as they don't shout or are loud. So yes, so then he addresses them. Even if you are a drunkard, also you can become a great yogi if you meditate that the taste in the wine that so much attracts you, that is Krishna. And he quoted a Sanskrit verse from the Bhagavad Gita, which says that Krishna expressed, I'm the taste in all liquids. The word is there, liquid. It is not just water. In everything that is liquid, the taste, like juice, orange juice, everything. I'm the taste. So start now. If all of you who I can't imagine that someone here is a drunkard. Maybe sometimes you take a little for digestion or something, but not an excessive whiskey drinker, or I can't imagine. So if you would now go, okay, I meditate by drinking wine, this is the taste of God. This would be a fall down from your level. But if you are on a level like that, then thinking this is divine, the essence of this drink is divine, that is already a progress. So for you it would be a fall down, for a drunkard it's a progress. So the point I take from here is, go to the level, be honest about the level where you presently are, and according to that level, get into an appropriate spiritual practice. I do not know your community so well. I hope in the coming summer I will get to know many of you personally, because I will be staying only a stone throw away from Times Square in New York. I'm already totally excited to visit this town, which has been very generous to me. I have had such wonderful memories. And I heard that we will be having a program together. There's a chance that we all can meet in good numbers. It would be nice if up to that moment, this summer, you have stepped up your game a little bit. I think that's an American expression, to go to the next step. And about spiritual practice, I really recommend you to talk to Rasanath and Hari Prasad and Vipin and Michael. This is something one best talks about on an individual level, where one has individual consultation. Now, this is appropriate. This is not yet appropriate. Like this, where you have individual counseling. Good. Start on the level where you are, and I give you a tip: learn to live with yourself. Learn to live with your limitations and so on, because if you always are thinking, I am not good enough, oh no, why am I so useless? Oh, this bitter thoughts will make you physically sick even. Instead, introduce a doable spiritual practice and see how this will uplift you.
Thank you. Scott is asking, thank you. He says, thank you for today. I have often heard that as we die, there is a moment when we review our lives. Is there a practice we can try while we're still alive that will help us to bring the important lessons from this life into our next? How can we create an intention?
Yes, Scott, very, very good question. Yes, I know that at the end point of life, you renew, even when you're still alive, Old people are often going with their memory into the past. Maybe you have seen this with your grandfather, or yes, like this. So this reviewing becomes very intense at the moment of death. There's a movie of going on. It's almost like your personal movie where you are the main protagonist. Is viewed by you. This is definitely there. So, if there is a practice in this life which you should do, what I do regularly, as is this. I put death in front of my eyes, a little bit like we did in this meditation, which we have just completed some time ago. And yes, I do go through my life and see the story of my life at that moment. Childhood, what are some memories in my childhood, from my childhood, youth, my first travels to India when I started to go on pilgrimage now it's for me a regular yearly or annual function. I go in my memory to those important spiritual meetings with my spiritual teacher. Even I have a few dreams which I feel are very important. They belong to me. What is life worth without reflecting the moments? Because then you can't learn anything. I think I must have shared with you, there was one Chinese emperor who was very wise, who took every morning a bath in a golden bathing tub. He was emperor. And he had something engraved into the walls of his golden bathing tub. He had engraved the sentence, "What is the life worth which is not reflected upon?" So, yes, I do go through the movie of my life often. And I go with a specific intention. That makes it spiritual. I look for those empowered moments which then empower me in the present. It is something which I do on a personal note. I have heard that every Ekadasi that comes twice in a month, we just had yesterday one Ekadasi, you're supposed to look through your life like this. It's a practice which is recommended to be done. You know, Scott, the moment you go into a meta perspective and have an overview of your life, from when you were a boy to now, that moment, Scott, you are no longer captured, imprisoned, caged, or caked over by the small things that I call them the tyranny of the 1,000 urgent things, which make you forget the essential things in your life.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So we have a question from Vipin's father, Anand uncle. He says, in our class, I expressed my desire to surrender to Krishna in my present life rather than many lives. I would very much appreciate your words of wisdom, what I can do to achieve my goal.
Wow, Vipin, now we know why you have come out so good. I've expressed my desire to Krishna, what I would like to do in this life. And can you help me? Because I was almost fainting. The question was so good that I only heard the first half, not the second.
Yeah, so Anand uncle and Chandu auntie, his mom, are both in our Gita class that we teach. And he said that he expressed in that context a desire to surrender to Krishna, to surrender to God in this present life rather than in many lives. And he would appreciate your words of wisdom for what he can do to achieve that goal.
You have to work on the obstacles which are keeping you from fulfilling your dream. I have one disciple, a very advanced soul, who told me, he is from a Muslim background, and there is one prayer in the Quran where you pray to give your life entirely to Allah. So this young boy, when he was a young boy, he had heard in the mosque about this prayer, and he told me, he confided in me that he felt a calling at that time, but when he came home, he thought, I'm so young. I have not experienced a woman. I have not experienced wealth. I have not experienced the things which life can give me. And I fear if I will just now try to give myself fully over, later I will regret it, and I will go back on my promise. You know, it's a type of promise, this prayer. I will go back on my prayer and promise, and then I will feel I have betrayed the one person whom I cannot and do not want to be disappointed with me. So I have not said this prayer. So life then took this person out of his home country. He began to travel. He became an accomplished person in so many ways. And I met him maybe only a week ago. It was last Friday, and I just took him to the side and said, "Come." So, have you answered? Are you now able to do this promise? Fulfill this promise? Are you there now? And he said to me, "No, I'm not yet there." And I said, well, you have to now confront what is it that is keeping you to fulfill your heart's desire. Now you have to look at the obstacles. And I quoted a verse from the Bhagavatam, which says one should directly and indirectly inquire for the absolute truth. And the indirect inquiry is we look at the obstacles, or we try to explore what obstacles are there. And he said he would do that, and the next time when we would meet, it could be already the coming Friday, in 2 days, we will have a talk about this. So it is very important to see, is it doubts which you have? Is it attachments that keep you? Is it habits which keep you? What could it be that keeps you a bound soul? And then address them. However, this having been said, and this is the last thing I will say today, spiritual life does not mean to take things only into our hands. You get much further in spiritual life when you resign or give over the things which you cannot solve on your own into the hands of God. That is sometimes much, much more efficient, or it helps much more. So I do have this prayer regularly. I say, please, my Lord, give me your mercy and take away all the obstacles which are still in the way. And I feel by this type of heartfelt prayer, it has to be heartfelt, so many good things have happened in my life. Whew, thank you. Now I have talked a lot after a long day. If we come here close to the evening, it is 7:27 at this moment. So with your permission, the river of my words will stop flowing here, and I will give everything over to Hari Prasad to conclude this evening and to prime us for the next session. I would like to make this point. It is very nice to have a lively question and answer session. I will speak for about 20 minutes about the subject to just bring us all back to the discussion where we stand. And then, let us please explore this and let us remove obstacles. Let this be a safe forum in which we can discuss these deeper questions. And this means in this forum we should do some spiritual archaeology is the word, where we go deeper and deeper and deeper, and we will not find some bones and stones, we will find some living questions, some living doubts also, some living hopes which are there residing in our hearts, and we can then bring them forth and deal with them. I thank you very much, and over to you, Hari Prasad.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Sacinandana Swami. We're thrilled to have you with us and to get to have you with us for 2 more sessions. And thank you, everyone, for bringing your fullest presence and being a part of this experience. It's so meaningful for us. Please do consider your questions for next week, and we will be excited to go into them. So wishing you all the very best, and may we live the realizations that we're taking away from today. Thank you.
All the best, all the best, all the best. And Tsivi and George, I see you there in the right corner of the computer. So I'm looking forward to be your guest a stone's throw away from Times Square.